we now turn to something that is close to my heart and my job in a way. Al-Ula, yesterday, you saw about that. Machu Picchu, Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Teotihuacan in Mexico, I've actually been there. So many of these amazing heritage sites that need to be protected. So how do you protect them? Do you ration? Do you price them so that only the rich can see them? Do you make facsimiles of tombs in the Valley of Kings? I've seen that, and that is suggested as being a possible solution. All that is to be discussed in this session about cultural heritage tourism, preservation or profit. And the moderator, I welcome on stage, Debbie Flynn, Managing Partner, Global Travel Practice, Finn Partners UK. Debbie.
Everybody. Our session today is culture and heritage tourism, preservation or profit. People and places are what make destinations truly unique. Whether it's history, art, ancestry or cuisine, these and many more are what inspired visitors in the past and what drives visitation today. Question for our panel today is to ask, do tourism have a responsibility to help protect these fragile assets? So I'm going to be joined today, actually live on the stage, by Carlos Cendra from Mabrian. And virtually, please. Hi, good to see you. We have James Thornton, who is the CEO of Intrepid, still in quarantine, James. We prepared for this session last week in Sydney. Carol Savage from Not in the Guidebooks, the founder of Not in the Guidebooks, and Professor Shigeru Sasaki from the Toyo Uni in Tokyo, who is in charge of the tourism faculty. Not actually with us today is Chris Flynn, who is the CEO of the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage, but he's been very much behind the planning of this session. And so we're going to begin with a video from him. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chris Flynn. I am the President and CEO of the World Tourism Association for Culture and Heritage. Greetings from Sydney, Australia. Unfortunately, I can't be with you today due to COVID. Therefore, I've prepared a very brief presentation to help provide some context or discussion points for our next panel discussion. Thank you. My presentation today is Cultural Heritage Tourism, redefining the true meaning of travel. As we know, tourism has long been seen as a way to help destinations drive sustainable economic growth. The historical perception has been of a benign industry, one that generates value for intangible or soft assets such as cultural and heritage. These assets have traditionally been used as a way to attract visitors, a resource, if you will, to drive growth and profit, to build businesses, create jobs. Cultural heritage is therefore the platform that has fueled the modern era of tourism promotion. Now, whether it's looking back at the enigmatic pyramids of Egypt or the stunningly beautiful canals of Venice, wherever we look around the world, we see that it's the uniqueness of place, the uniqueness of people, the history, the heritage. It's these things that have driven visitation historically and continue to do so today. So as tourism grew, so did the opportunity to expand the visitor experience. And the idea being, the more experiences you have, the more visitors you'll attract. The more visitors equals more revenue. More revenue, a healthier economy. And a healthier economy improves lives and livelihoods. Or does it? You see, visitors also consume precious and often fragile resources. They generate cost, such as waste, infrastructure damage, social and cultural disruption. So as tourism grew, it became the victim of its own success. You see, traditionally, the success of a destination has been measured on the number of visitors we welcome. And if we look back to 2009, pre-COVID-19, you'll see that we attracted 1.5 billion international tourists. That was 2 years ahead of forecast. Now, before we move forward, let's do a little bit of mental arithmetic to try and get a picture of what we're talking about. If I take 1 million seconds away from today, I end up with about 12 days. If I take 1 billion seconds away from today, I end up with 33 years. So you can kind of see the issues that were being created because of this volume. So that was 4% change year on year from 2018 and equated to about 4 million visitors a day. So let's have a look what 4 million visitors a day actually looks like. It's not exactly what was on the brochure for Venice, certainly not what's on the postcard today. And wherever we look, whether it's our sacred sites, our beaches, our towns and villages, our historical cities, it seems to be the same. No one is immune. This is a global issue. No wonder then that we started to see sentiment emerging around the world, like this, tourists go home. Or here in Barcelona, tourists welcome, locals are not. And that is the problem, because local communities have never been part of the equation. They've never had a seat at the table to discuss what is right for that destination, how they will benefit, how they will welcome visitors in the future, something that has to change. You see, it's always been profit over people in place. Well, what we should be looking for is prosperity for all. And if we put people and place together, it equals prosperity. It equals sharing. The very nature of the word equals sharing. It's about community. It's about building pride in those communities. So as we move forward, we need to celebrate our historical past. We need to respect our sacred sites and beliefs, treasure our natural beauty, and preserve our unique living cultures and communities.
Well, that was powerful, wasn't it? And I think Chris touched on a lot of things that have come up on very many of the panels that we've all experienced the last couple of days. So James, if I can come to you first. Communities around the world have enjoyed the serenity of their hotspots without tourists during COVID. What responsibility do you think that tour operators have to prevent over-tourism and crowding for these communities in the future?
Well, hi, Debbie from quarantine here in Sydney. Like we've all seen the stories about marine life returning to Venice and people in India seeing the Himalayas for the first time thanks to lockdown and easing pollution. These stories shone a light on the impact of tourism in full force, didn't they? And as travel begins to return, or at least in some parts of the world, we at Intrepid believe that we have a responsibility to protect the amazing places we visit and help to preserve them for the future. And interestingly, it's our customers that agree. Recent research showed that 72% of Intrepid travellers think preserving cultural heritage is essential. In fact, it ranks second of social issues that they thought were most important. Now, preserving culture is essential to a business like ours. The majority of activities on Intrepid's trips, in fact, 80% of our top 50 trips are historical and cultural in nature, and they include 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Tourism acts as a preserver of culture, and frankly, without tourism, there's often not much incentive to preserve cultural practices or historical sites. In fact, without tourism, some cultural practices could vanish. You see examples of it, like in Spain, flamenco dancing is in danger of dying out without the demand for tourists. And in Sri Lanka, many heritage sites and monuments have fallen into disrepair. Now at Intrepid, we're doing a lot in the space. We've always designed our trips to take travellers away from the crowded spots and help them find those amazing places off the beaten track. And every trip is designed to provide insights into a destination's people and culture and history, and not only of the dominant culture, but also of the diverse people, cultures and histories that coexist within a country. And as travel's largest B Corp, we at Intrepid strive to support local communities in protecting and promoting their cultural heritage. And during the pandemic, we've extended this approach to our new local product. We've done that in Australia via our reconciliation plan, in working more collaboratively with our First Nations people and First Nations operators so they can tell their own stories and not have someone else speaking on their behalf. In Europe, we've partnered with IUCN's MEET network, which works with protected areas in the Mediterranean to create tourism experiences that support conservation efforts and benefit local people. In Crete and Croatia, we take travellers away from the usual tourist spots to meet local people and learn about their customs and traditions. And it makes a much better experience for the traveller and, of course, spreads the benefit of tourism. Now, reducing the carbon impact of travel is also the key to protecting the places we visit, and we're working hard to reduce the environmental impact of our trips by decarbonising our itineraries. And the good example of that is replacing domestic flights with train or boat rides. And last year at Intrepid, we became the first tour operator to commit to science-based sustainability carbon reduction targets. Now, of course, there's always more we can do, and we're, of course, only one company. So as the travel industry, we've got so much power to make a positive difference to local communities. During the pandemic, there's been lots of talk about building back better, haven't they? But I'd love to see the whole travel industry becoming more conscious of its impact, as ultimately, for a healthy travel industry, we sure as heck need a healthy planet.
Thanks, James. And I know that Intrepid, you've always been well ahead of the game, and that it's always been very much in your DNA to share best practice with the rest of the industry, which is fantastic. Now, hearing your research, we'll go on to some actually research from you, Carlos, which probably backs up what James was saying. So you and your team at Mabrian have got some interesting stats, haven't you, that I understand show very recent consumer behaviour, showing that their desire and demand has changed since the pandemic. And that they think more about and care more about the community and experiences. So perhaps you can share some of the highlights with us and tell us how you think that this will change the future interaction with culture and heritage sites.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, we did a study about the evolution of the interest in terms of cultural products of the travelers during the last 4 years, from 2018 to today, using basically the spontaneous interactions in the main online portals. So basically analyzing what they say about their experiences. And the main findings of that are basically that the hard cultural assets are losing importance in front of the soft ones, right? The hard ones would be buildings, religious sites, architecture, museums, and the soft ones are all that attractions related to the culture, to the customs of the locals, to the context, to the gastronomy. All that is gaining importance. And that takes us to a type of traveler which is more sensitive, more conscious, and care more about the local communities. And that's a good insight. The motivations are moving from visiting places to knowing histories, to learning about histories and the heritage of the places. It's more about culture and people, or history and people, than places itself. It's about learning. We can see a great example here in Évora, which is an amazing cultural city, with the temple, the ruins of the Roman temple. All of us will agree that it's amazing seeing that ruins and making pictures of that, but it's even more interesting knowing the history, the footprint of the Roman heritage in today's culture and today's locals in Évora, right? About learning, there is also one finding interesting, refers to the evolution of the cultural offer in terms of the digitalization of that offer. This is something to keep in mind, because it's been speeding up during the last 18 months a lot. We've seen a lot of cultural offers that start offering virtual visiting, virtual experiences because of the circumstances. And this is something interesting because can also change the motivation for traveling, right? So our advice for destination managers would be looking for creating a combination in between a visit and experience and people, right? It's not just about visiting stones, as I say. The people want to know the history behind that, right? And the last finding, but not least, which is interesting as well and has a lot to do with sustainability travel, is related to what we call the second level tourist attractions, right? During the last months, during the last seasons, data says that travelers is being much more interested in that type of attractions, not on the top line attractions, but also on the second level ones. That means that they were looking for more isolated experiences, looking for less crowded places, and that turns into an opportunity to use all that structure of attractions to decongest some of the main attractions in terms of cultural.
Fantastic. Well, I think everyone's going to be very pleased to hear that in terms of going forward. And Carol, this must be also music to your ears. You started your business just before the pandemic hit, which was challenging to say the least. But you not only exclusively focus on community experience, but you also have a business model that allows the opportunity for communities to potentially share their commission or fee and invest in, not in the guidebooks. So you really do have the community right at the heart of it. So I was wondering, how do you feel the pandemic has changed the future for you and the communities that you actually operate in?
Hello, everybody. I think the pandemic has been a real double-edged sword. So, initially we started a campaign at the very beginning to try and keep the local partners connected with each other, because, immediately their livelihood just fell off a cliff. So the pandemic, far-reaching, everyone sort of was worried here, and what we were trying to communicate was, you might think things are bad here, but actually the people that we're working with, this is their livelihood gone, and there isn't any other way for them to earn any money. So it was a huge impact. We had messages from partners just saying, we don't get support from our local governments, can you help us? So the pandemic was, had a huge impact on the people who are being kind enough to share their experiences and share their homes with tourists. And now the tourists have all gone and they've got no way of earning any money. So I think that was really bad, obviously. I think the really good side, when it comes back, is that those people who are traveling to the different places, close by and far away, have really been made aware about what they've been doing, and it's opened their eyes to supporting local communities and not just going and using them and going and seeing their beautiful heritage sites, but also realizing that these are the people who are living there, that there are local communities there. And there has been a lot more focus on, or desire, to support local communities. So I do believe, and I hope this is true, that people are becoming more conscious travellers. And all I hope is that with all of this talk, they don't go back to doing what they were doing before.
Well, I think we all very much hope that, and that's very much what these 2 days have been about. So, Professor, coming to you, we know the geisha community has long played a role in the heritage tourism of Japan, and I understand that since the pandemic, there have been some additional realization in terms of both opportunity for communities and future international tourists alike. Perhaps you can share some of your experiences and findings.
Well, thank you, Debbie. I want to mention the perspective how to sustain the local area, as well as avoiding too much tourists. So I have 3 points. So one is regional ecosystem. Now, limited to geisha, the regions of Japan are woven with diverse cultures. The geisha culture, which has begun to decline, has been successfully sustained by shifting the target to the Western tourists with insight into Japanese traditions. And in which a ryokan specializing in small luxury, reducing the number of guest rooms from 100 to 10, and treating each customer carefully. At the same time, it also maintained the diverse culture of the region by enhancing hospitality that thoroughly focuses on the local culture. It acts as a keystone for the local ecosystem to make it happen. For example, the local culture of this village is lacquerware, which has a tradition of 450 years, about 50,000 yen for one sake, like this. Can you see this? It's the sake cup. And just like the small one, it costs 50,000 yen. and the tatami mats handmade by craftsmen and geisha, etc. It is this inn that plays a certain role in, a central role in these activities and connects people outside the region with cultural entities within the region. The second one is cultural translation and transformation. The maintenance of local culture is not always carried out within the same region. The traditional pottery has been supported by people in a wealthy class who understand traditional culture, but as the number of such people declined, it became difficult to maintain the pottery studio. Meanwhile, they happened to meet a design company called Super Mama at an exhibition of pottery in Singapore. When they succeeded to burn the photo of Singapore's iconic housing complex into pottery using their porcelain method, it was finished in a very modern design. After that, it was approved by the president and adapted as a souvenir for state guests. So with this as a trigger, the export of this porcelain started on earnest. And the third one is healthcare tourism, focusing on frailty. I'm afraid that even if the inbound tourism comes back, it will take time, and there are many areas where tourism like that before COVID-19 will be developed due to the advance of bargain sales such as go-to travel by the Japanese government. But this will not connect local cultures to other local cultures for the future. Therefore, we must look for the alternative market instead of inbound tourism. Recently, I'm studying health tourism, which contributes to frailty prevention, in which the elderly who can be the driving force of the tourism market can continue to enjoy tourism energetically no matter how old they are. I'm researching with the medical department for the aim of creating a system that allows elderly people create a body while having fun, which will lead to the prevention of frailty by combining forests, hot springs, and local cuisine. So I think that the goal of Super Aging Society Japan is to aim for tourism where the elderly and people with disabilities can enjoy communication with their friends and enjoy their health while playing with peace of mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. That's all very interesting. Now, we were also going to have a tourism board on our panel. Unfortunately, the president of ATU France was unable to join us. So I'm going to direct this question to you, James, because you go to so many different countries. So the sustainability writer, who you'll know well, Juliet Kinsman, in her book, The Green Edit, advises consumers on how they should decide what makes a destination more sustainable. And she suggests that what they need to do is think about what really matters to them and what their values are, and then choose a country that reflects both their values and what matters to them and where they really feel they can make a positive difference. And I'm wondering how you feel destinations, how much of a responsibility you feel destinations have to protect their heritage and cultural assets, and how you think they can help educate future travellers to respect the experiences that they have.
It's a great question, Debbie. I think national tourism boards and destinations absolutely have a responsibility, as this is core, of course, to their destination, their product, isn't it? So for many travellers, culture and heritage is, of course, the key motivator for them to travel. I think I saw recently a recent customer survey showed that customers feel that cultural heritage is the second most important social issue for them. And I know Intrepid that I think it's 99% of our customers said they have experienced a positive impact by gaining culture or art or heritage knowledge from a trip. So I guess ultimately and simply, we just feel that governments must understand that the future of tourism is in the destinations that we visit, and that relies on the absolute preservation of culture. So that's our perspective.
Great, thank you. Well, as you know, what this whole event is very much about is coming up with some real tangible, positive plans. So I'm going to finish by asking you all a similar question. It's a big topic. We've had very little time today, and our time got cut short. So what we're trying to do is find these serious solutions. So I'll start with you, Carlos, but I'm going to come to you all on this one. So if you had one wish for the global travel community to commit to, or one that your organisation could commit to, that would ensure a more sustainable future for travel while making the changes to the impact of tourism? What would it be?
Good question. Hello? Yep. Good question. From my side, what I would suggest is providing tools to measure, to track, measure, and be able to track the performance in terms of sustainability for destinations, which is, I think, one of the main lacks right now on the sector, and this is something that technology can help us to do.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about how tech is going to enable over these last 2 days, hasn't it? Carol, how about you?
So we work with local partners who then, design, local partners, local communities, small independent businesses who help us or help travelers to experience their country, their activities, the uniqueness of their place. I think what's really important is that for them, sustainability is such a big word. It's like everyone's talking about it, and it's this great big umbrella word that nobody really understands what they can do. And when I'm speaking to different people, just one-man bands through to kind of small businesses, there's so much they can do, but it's almost too much of a big jump. So what I think we need is a kind of, It's a continuum of small steps that people can change so that everyone can make a difference. So that, you can start by saying the first thing you can do to help become more sustainable is this. And you can go from being a kind of bronze player up to a platinum player. That it's not just, I heard someone the other day on a conference saying that 90% of people weren't sustainable. And I'm thinking, no, we can all be a little bit sustainable and we can all get a little bit better. So my point is, I think we need to make it easy for everyone to do something.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Professor?
So I'm sorry, but I don't have any idea for the,
That's okay.
Sustainability anymore. But nowadays in Japan, many hotels are aiming after Corona, COVID-19. So they are, planning a little bit different concept before COVID-19. One is now there are many projects to build up the brand new hotel aiming to the luxury class. And also we have lots of labor shortages. That's why many hotels, one of the hotel groups are planning to, labor saving hotels for young people. And also another hotel groups are aiming to develop completely different type of renovation. Like one hotel is renovates old prison into the hotel, and another hotels renovate geisha museum into a hotel. So there are lots of different ideas to overcome this situation. That's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. And James, I'm sure you've got some views.
Yeah, no, I sure do. I think my views, they echo what Carlos and Carol both said in many respects. I mean, everyone knows that becoming, or I hope everyone knows that becoming more sustainable is absolutely vital for our industry. It's vital for any industry to ultimately become more sustainable. But I think critically, not everyone knows how to do it or where to begin. You don't suddenly become a sustainable travel company overnight in the same way that when I'm thinking about problems at Intrepid, I don't suddenly become an expert in artificial intelligence. You've got to start with small incremental steps. And I think what I'd love from everyone here to take away is to start taking that first step if you haven't already. One of the things we've done at Intrepid during the pandemic is we've shared a lot of our experience as a responsible tour operator. One of the things we've shared is we have a 10-step guide to decarbonising your travel business. You can go onto the Intrepid Travel website, you can download that 10-step guide, and it gives you practical steps around how you can start to make first steps moving forward to go from being the type of travel company you are now to becoming a sustainable travel company. You don't have to go with how Intrepid has grown over the course of 32 years. You don't just become sustainable overnight. So you might start by downloading that guide and just beginning to measure your impact as a great example. And the reality is, Debbie, that because, as much as the pandemic has been absolutely devastating for the travel industry, it's also given us the chance to reassess our actions. And it has given us the opportunity to be able to try and rebuild more responsibly. And, the brutal truth of the matter is that while there is a vaccine for COVID, and hopefully that will help solve the situation we're in, there ultimately is no vaccine for climate change. And so we need to start to take real serious action now to prevent an even worse disaster in the years to come.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I think that the takeaways from that in terms of we are all on a journey, and I think that's been very much recognised over the last couple of days. And one of the sessions I was in yesterday that was led by Claire Irvin from The Telegraph, one of the things they were talking about is that we as an industry, although the research that you talked about, James, and you talked about, Carlos, and came from other research, the consumers are changing what they want, but we shouldn't be waiting for that. We should be ahead of the game and creating those experiences to make it easy for them, because going on holiday, it should be a fun experience and shouldn't be full of responsibility. Am I doing the right thing? So it's really our responsibility to make that enjoyable for them and making the right choices. And it all, of course, leads back to the community. So I hope when we do publish the 5 commitments at the end of this event, and that this time next year you can all be here in person, and we will come back and we can really, really measure, as you say, Carlos, actually, what have we done in this last year? And everyone can take their own small steps. We're on that journey together. So thank you very much.